Welcome back to the channel. Thank y'all for hanging with me on this Friday. So I got some questions about how I rig up my swim bait, rod, reel, and line. I'm going to go into that because I keep swim bait fishing fairly easy. There's like 3 that I use in all different types of situations. And then it's important to know the line, the rod, the reel, because you will lose some fish if you don't have the correct gear. And then water clarity and around what types of cover that I throw each one. So this post-spawn bait that probably gets more attention than anything is the swim bait, because this is the time of year where I don't really feel like you're gambling by throwing it, because you can take every other bait that I have tied on and you may fish with them for a couple days, a whole week, and never get a big bite, never appeal to a fish over 4 pounds. And that's just something weird about the post spawn. You know, the timing is super important. If you're off on where you're at when they're biting, you may never get a big fish. If you're in the wrong part of the lake, you may never get a big fish. The shad are spawning in different parts of the lakes, different days. So it's really hard to catch big fish at times in the post spawn. That's why I feel like covering water and putting out a big presentation is your best bet. And it's not really that much of a gamble. So I'm going to go into the 3 swim baits that I use. The first one is the Bass Tricks paddle tail. I think you can get a 3-pack of these for about $10. And if I had one way to rig it, it would be on a jig head. So that's basically a swim jig head or just any type of jig head. I don't like a super heavy gauge hook. That's like a medium wire gauge hook. So I can still throw it on like 15-pound test fluorocarbon. But if I just had one, you can really fish this in almost all water depths. You know, I don't really like throwing this in shallower than like 3 or 4 feet, but anything deeper than 3 or 4 feet, this is pretty much all you need, and you're going to have the best hookup percentage with a jig head. So if you just had one, this is pretty much all you need. Now, when I do go shallower than 3 or 4 feet, I will still throw the Bass Tricks some, but I'm much more of a fan of the Gambler Big Easy. So this is a much more affordable option as well. You know, you're going to catch a lot of like 1.5 to 2 pound fish on this bait. So I do like that it's more affordable. It's not as realistic. It doesn't have the eyes, but typically where I'm throwing this, I don't think it matters. You know, I'm throwing this in a little bit more stained, less visibility water. I can fish this around all types of cover, like lily pads, any type of grass. You can rig it up Texas style on just straight braid with a little tiny weight, buzz it over the top. You can just swim it real fast. It doesn't turn over. It's just a really good all-purpose swim bait. And then when I want to get out a little deeper, I can take that keel-weighted belly hook and with the screw in and screw that in and then fish it out, you know, out in that 4 or 5 foot range. If I'm fishing around a little bit less cover, you know, maybe there's not lily pads, maybe it's just some bank grass, I will go with this hook. This is a great hook anytime you're fishing around lay downs, docks, visible cover. It's going to keep that bait up in the water column a little bit, but this is a great way to fish any of these swim baits if you are fishing a little bit shallower. You know, that 3 to 5 foot range, this is a great way to fish them. Now, or around visible cover. Now, the problem that you will run into with this hook is that a lot of them that you'll buy, the eye of the hook is in line with the point. So when you go to set the hook, a lot of times that eye of that hook hits before the point of the hook does. This one's got a little bit of room there, but I'm not a big fan of that. I think you do lose quite a few fish because of that. So if you wanted to just take a regular extra wide gap super aligned hook, now you would probably need like a 7/0 hook for a lot of these swim baits. So that's why I don't think a lot of guys do this, but I would try to find a 7/0 extra wide gap hook in the super line and then rig it up with braid to fluorocarbon and take like some suspend strips and wrap it around your hook if you wanted to get that bait down a little bit. Some of the swim baits, you don't even need to put the suspend strips on there, but I think your hookup percentage with just a normal super line extra wide gap hook from Gamakatsu is probably going to land more fish. This with the spring, it's going to stay on there a little bit better. This will probably be a lot easier to fish, but your hookup percentage I don't think will be as good. But I will use this hook on basically the Big Easy, And when I get in a little bit clearer water, you know, it may be the same situations that I'm throwing the Big Easy. I just don't have as much cover, and I really want to appeal to those fish that can get a better look at the bait, is the little creeper trash fish. So this is a little bit higher dollar bait, but it has a real subtle, you can fish it really slow, really realistic look. And a lot of times those fish will get right underneath it and get a good look at it and still eat it. So they track this bait really well, and they bite it when I don't feel like they'll bite a Big Easy. So, or a Bass Tricks. So that's where I'm at with that. Now, the Bass Tricks, when I get out in a little bit deeper water, you can fish with every different size head. I think this is a 3/4, and this one has like a twist lock. So they do make some that have a twist lock on there. So you can see there's a little spring on there. That's going to definitely make swim bait fishing a lot easier for you. But I still like to use a little bit of super glue anytime I'm fishing with the jig head. So to twist it up on there, a drop of super glue, you should at least get 3 or 4, maybe 5 or 6 fish on it. I use some that don't have the twist lock. I'm always using super glue with that. And if you really wanted to get carried away, you can actually take these Bass Trick swim baits, which are hollow on the inside, and just cut off like the tiniest little piece off the front of it while you're not to the hollow part yet. And then it has more surface area there. And then you can basically twist it back up on your jig head like so. I usually do this after I've caught a couple fish on it, and then take a little bit of Loctite gel, and then just a drop is all you need, like on both sides. And it seems like it fits on there a little straighter, and it really sits on there perfect. You want it to be on there perfectly straight. You don't want any like bulge in the bait. That's going to make it turn over, not run straight. And this was just like a mom and pop tackle store I bought those from, but I know the True Lock from True Bass, they make a really good strong hook in a jig head with the twist lock on there. So that's basically how I'm rigging up that swim bait. Now, the setup is very important. So whenever I'm fishing the swim bait on the jig head, I like 15-pound test fluorocarbon and a high-speed reel, and then a long rod, because a 7'6" rod, when you go to try to catch up to a fish, a lot of times they'll just swim up, bite it, spit it out. They're not always going to engulf the whole thing and load up, but you got to be quick. So that 7'6" compared to like a 7 foot, you got to imagine you get 6 inches of line in that hook set. That's the difference between hooking a fish and losing a fish a lot of times. So it's always a 7'6" when I'm fishing with fluorocarbon. So 15-pound fluorocarbon on this. The Big Easy, when you're fishing shallow, you can go, I usually go heavier because I'm around some cover. And I don't think the fish are really seeing the line. You know, the bait is only a couple feet under the water anyway. So it's braided line a lot of times when I'm super shallow around a lot of cover, straight braid. And then I'll go up to like 17 or 20-pound fluorocarbon when I'm fishing around a little bit deeper. Same thing goes with the trash fish. If I'm in like a super clear lake, I'll probably be throwing it on like 20-pound fluorocarbon. 20-pound fluorocarbon's a really good size when you're just throwing a swim bait around and you're fishing it up in the water column. Now, I also throw the 7-inch Bass Tricks. I like the 7-inch Bass Tricks when I'm fishing around laydowns, docks. I'm fishing around visible cover like stumps. I can see this bait. I can feel this bait a little bit better because it is quite a bit bigger. They're only giving it credit for 7 inches, but it does seem a lot bigger than that 6-inch when you start throwing it out there. So I always do use that keel weighted belly hook with the twist lock. And for this, I'm throwing it on braid. So I don't necessarily need the 7'6". I throw it on a 7'4" heavy action rod, high speed reel. All swim baits I throw are on a high speed reel. And then I do an FG knot. So I'll do 65-pound braid, to 25-pound fluorocarbon for the fact that I'm trying to get this heavy wire gauge hook in the fish. So I'm throwing it around laydowns and docks, and you need to be quick because a lot of times they're not going to always engulf this big bait. They're just going to grab the head of it. You got to set the hook quick. You know, if they do swallow it, you want to let the rod load and all that, you feel the weight of the fish, that's great, but a lot of times you don't have that much time. They will spit a swim bait out. So for that, I like that braid because I don't have to be as quick, you know, less stretch. You can get a hook in them. So that is basically it when it comes to my setups. I think the length of your rod is important when you're throwing fluorocarbon. I think always a high speed reel is important because you'll see them. They'll come up right by the side of the boat and they'll just grab it for a second. And before you can even feel them, you know, the weight of the fish, they drop it. So you've got to be quick on the swim bait. But that's basically it. Make sure you have super glue, and you really only need like 2 or 3 types of swim baits, and that should cover all of your swim bait needs when you're power fishing, shallow or deep. Try that, guys. Good luck to you, and I'll see you on the water.